everyone, and welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to be reacting to MLB's top 100 players. Now, with the way I talk about them, when I say too high, to me that means they were rated too good. And if I say too low, that means I think they, got kind of discredited a little bit, not exactly where they should be. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the list, go over the stats of these players, and give my thoughts on their rankings and say, do I think it's right? Do I think it should be a little better, a little worse? So that's just basically the format of this video. And let's get right into it, as the number 100 player on their list is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, the expectations for Vlad are high considering how great his father was, Vladimir Guerrero Sr., with the Los Angeles Angels and the Expos and other teams. We know that he could do it all. He was a great outfielder, had a cannon for an arm, could hit any pitch in the strike zone, outside the strike zone. He was probably better outside the strike zone. I mean, he could do it all. He was a tremendous player. He's one of my personal favorite players to watch growing up. And we knew that his son was a big-time prospect, and the Toronto Blue Jays being able to get him, that definitely was a big deal. Had a little bit of a delayed start to a season. You know how important the service time is to some of these teams, especially a player of Vlad's caliber. The Blue Jays are not in win-now mode. They're like, why not get an extra year out of this guy anyway? And in his 123 games, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit 15 home runs, drove in 69 runs, had a 272 average, and a 339 on-base percentage. So it's like, okay, well, we know that next year Vlad's number is probably going to be higher. And as we go on, his numbers will continue to increase. So I don't have too big a problem with his ranking, because the thing is that, he is a rookie and he could have been better. Because you know what? Here's the thing, is that there are a lot of young players on this list, especially the first 20, the 100 to 80 portion of it. A lot of young players on there, and a lot of guys, they're able to put up great offensive production in not that many games, in less games than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So the expectation is higher for them, and we do expect him to be better. So as of right now, since it's only his first year, we're going to leave that ranking just where it is. We're not going to go too crazy about it. One of my main problems with this list is how much stacking they did. And what I mean by stacking is putting the same team or position all together back to back to back. That just seemed a little tricky to me, because like, okay, well, because the next guy on this list is Cody Bellinger, another rookie from the Toronto Blue Jays. So it's like, okay, well, let's get the two Toronto rookies out the way. Let's get all the White Sox players out the way. Let's get the Twin players out the way. Let's get the closers all the way. And let's stack them one after another. It's like, are they really that similar in performance in comparison? Like, you really can't move them around a little bit to make it a more accurate list. That's just one of the things. And you'll definitely see what I'm talking about, the trends as we go on. But number 99, Cody Bellinger. Bichette, another son of a good player, and Dante Bichette, who is known with his time with the Colorado Rockies. And Bo, in 46 games, had 11 home runs, driving in 21 runs with a 311 average and a 358 on-base percentage. So, Cody Bichette, in almost 80 less games than Vlad, only 4 less home runs, and he had the above 300 average. And Cody Bichette definitely showed some more promise on defense. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. playing third base, not an excellent defender. Obviously there's still work to be done there. But Cody Bichette, for such a small sample size, he definitely performed really well. But the thing is, it is only 46 games, so you don't want to go too crazy. So his ranking, that's okay too. I'm not going to go crazy about the rookies unless they're really sensational. It's so hard to really evaluate a guy and say, okay, this is one of the best players in baseball just based off what happened in 46 games. And Cody Bichette definitely had a good 46 games. Don't get me wrong. Look at those numbers. That definitely is solid. But obviously, we still do need to see more of him to really know exactly what kind of player he is. At number 98, we got Jacques Peterson, who definitely has been in the league longer with the Los Angeles Dodgers. In 149 games, he had 36 home runs, 249 average, 339 on-base percentage. And one of the other things for me, when I'm evaluating players, I like to see what they do in the postseason, because to me, that's the real makings of a player. You know what? Because you could hit 36 home runs in a regular season, because a lot of guys did that. That's one of the real big themes you're going to see in this list. A lot of players hit over 30 home runs. Almost everybody on this list hit over 30 home runs. And one of the big things that I'm keeping an eye on with this list, and I'm really curious to see what happens whenever baseball does start, is how did the potential juiced ball impact the statistics of these players? Because my thing is that if the ball was juiced, that could be why you were seeing so many guys that hit over 30 homers. If the baseball goes back to the way it was, will we not have so many guys hitting over 30 home runs? So I think that next year's list would be a lot more interesting to me if they do in fact change the baseball and obviously the whole setting of the game and everyone's in the same stadium. Because one thing is I'm going to say, Coors Field effect, Great American Ballpark, Yankee Stadium, hitter-friendly ballparks. That's one of the things that I also want to touch on as we get to some other players. But Jacques Peterson, he was pretty good in the NLDS. And like I said, I do use that as something I want to evaluate my players, how I would put them on a list. I do want to see what they do in the playoffs. And Jacques was pretty good there. And we know what Jacques is, you know what I mean? It's not like Vlad and Bichette. We don't know the exact kind of players they're going to be. We know what Jacques is. We know he's an all-or-nothing home run hitter and a really good home run hitter at that. He had a really good home run derby against Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So, I mean, there you go. 2 really good home run hitters right there. But, you know, in the juice ball season, Jacques could hit 30 home runs whether it's a juice ball or not. So this is kind of what he is. I mean, maybe he could be higher over some of these other guys because he is more proven. He has done it before because there are a lot of young first-time guys on this list that are ahead of him. So, I mean, Jacques could be a little higher in my opinion, but, I mean, not much higher. So let's go to the next guy. At number 97, we have Eloy Jimenez from the Chicago White Sox, a young guy. In 122 games, he hit 31 home runs, driving in 79 runs, 267 average, 315 on base percentage. So, I mean, we're going to have a lot of these all-or-nothing home run hitters on this list. That is the way baseball has become. It is a very home run-driven league. So you definitely see that with a lot of these players. And Eloy, for him to hit over 30 home runs in 122 games, that definitely is very impressive. Don't get me wrong. But again, since he is a young player, we do need to see more of him to know it's like, can he follow up on this? Can he be better? Will he become worse? Will this be a one-time thing for Eloy? All of those are questions that we do not have the answers for yet, so we still have to wait before we can fully evaluate him. Next up, another Chicago White Sox. So talk about the stacking. Jose Abreu, who made the All-Star team last season. He played in 159 games with 33 home runs, 123 runs driven in, 284 average, and 330 on-base percentage. I do believe that Jose Abreu is a little low on this list. He could be ranked better, and the reason for that is his consistency, and that this is not his first time doing it. This isn't even the best season of his career. We've seen Abreu be even better, and he's just been consistent. He'll give you the close to 300 average with the 30 home runs, drive in 100 runs on a team that doesn't win a lot of games, even though they have a lot of guys on this list, especially in this portion of it, the 100 to 80 part of it. But for me, Jose Abreu, since he has done it more often than a Eloy or a Bichette or some of the other guys on this list, I do think Abreu is worthy of a better ranking than that. And the fact that he did make the All-Star team. And that he can hit for a pretty high average, not just home runs. So I do think that Jose Abreu does deserve more credit for that. Next up, another Chicago White Sox. At number 95, we have Tim Anderson, who won 123 games, hit 18 home runs, 56 runs driven in. He had a 335 average, which gave him the American League batting title, and he had a 357 on base percentage. For me, I know Tim Anderson is very young. He does have good speed, so that definitely helps, but I'd rank him a lot higher than this. I mean, you're the batting champion. I mean, you are the best hitter in the league. In the American League, we have DHs and things like that, and there are plenty of DHs on this list. So to me, if you win a batting title, you know how much I love batting average, especially in this home run-driven league where so many guys are hitting over 30 home runs. But how many guys could give you the 335 average? Not much. So that is why I do think that Tim Anderson is definitely worthy of a higher ranking. Now, he only played 123 games, so there definitely is a chance that if he played the whole season, maybe he could have gone in a slump here or there, and he wouldn't have the 335 average, because I think a really good example is Jeff McNeil, and he's someone who in the first half, his batting average was in the 330s as well. Looked like he had a real good chance to win the batting title, but then all of a sudden he kind of went in a little bit of an average slump. Even though his home run numbers increased, the batting average decreased, and that led him not having a chance to win a batting title. So still, he did win it. He did qualify, so you can't take it from him. He will always be a batting champion. No matter what, Tim Anderson is the batting champion. So for me, I'd rank him a lot higher than this. But, I mean, that's the range that they went with. They put 3 White Sox in a row. At number 94, we have Keston Hiura from the Milwaukee Brewers, who in my MLB The Show series, I've been facing him a lot because the Mets faced the Brewers a lot earlier in the season. And he definitely has been a tough out. And in his 84 games, he had 19 home runs, driving in 49 runs, a 303 average with a 368 on-base percentage. And in the wild card game, he had a double, but he also struck out 3 times. So he definitely was a very good hitter in half a season. To give you 19 home runs and 300 average, he could have possibly hit 40 if he had another good second half of the season, if he played the other 80 games. But there's no guarantee. Again, slumps do happen, so it doesn't necessarily mean that if you hit 20 home runs in the first half, you're going to hit 20 home runs in the second half. We know it goes nothing like that. You can either hit a lot more or a lot less. It's very hard to do the same exact thing in both halves of the season. But he definitely showed promise as a young player to hit that many home runs and still give you an above 300 average, just barely, 303, but in such a short amount of time and as a really young player. So like a lot of these other young guys, we still need to see how he develops. Can he, build on this? I think that's something very important to keep in mind for all these young players. Another Milwaukee Brewer who is now a Cincinnati Red, Mike Moustakas, who made the All-Star team last season. He is ranked number 93. He played in 143 games, hitting 35 home runs with 87 runs driven in, a 254 average with a 329 on-base percentage. He went 0 for 4 in the wild card game, but Mike Moustakas has played in a lot of playoff games, especially his days with the Royals, so we know that he is capable of producing in the postseason. So we don't really worry about that for him too much. But, he was an all-star. He hit 35 home runs, 250 average. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys like that on this list. Like I said, there were so many players this year that hit over 30 home runs. So for somebody like Moustakas, it becomes hard to separate yourself from the rest of the pack, from the rest of these players, showing that you're better than these guys. It's really hard to do that, especially if your average is only 254. One thing in Moustakas' advantage is that he is more proven because he is older. He has done it more consistently. So, not really too crazy either way. I'm not going to really gripe about his rating. He is a good player. Obviously, as a top 100 player, he did make the All-Star team, and he is a good player. So I'm not going to say that he's a bad player. But it's just like, there's a lot of players that had very similar stat lines, so it's hard to really move his ranking around too much. At number 92, we had Tyler Glasnow. So now we have a pitcher, and he made 12 starts. He had a 1.78 ERA during the regular season, 76 strikeouts to 14 walks. He wasn't that good in the playoffs. So, I know he was really good in the regular season. Playoffs, not so much. And for Glasnow, it has been very tough for him because of injuries. You think of him only having 12 starts in the regular season. If Tyler Glasnow could just be healthy for a full season, then we could really evaluate just how good of a pitcher he is. We could see that he is capable of being a good pitcher, but we don't know if he could do that for a full season just yet until he does it. We have to see it to believe it. So since he's young, we can't really overreact either way with somebody like him. So that's a pretty good rating. At number 91, Luis Castillo from the Cincinnati Reds. He made the All-Star team. In 32 starts, he had a 3.40 ERA, 226 strikeouts, 79 walks. Castillo, he definitely is an electric arm. He made the All-Star team. He could strike out a lot of batters. You see the 226 strikeouts. He went the full season, 32 games, a 3.40 ERA in Great American Ballpark, which is a hitter-friendly ballpark. So you know what? Luis Castillo definitely had a good year. Like a lot of these guys, though, he is still young, so we don't have really a long sample size to look at, okay, well, do we know that Luis Castillo is consistently excellent? We don't know that quite yet. So, again, like a lot of these young guys, this is kind of where he has to stay. At number 90, we have Miguel Sano of the Minnesota Twins, who in 105 games hit 34 home runs with 79 runs driven in, 247 average, 346 on base percentage, and he had one hit in the LDS, and that was a home run. So obviously Miguel Sano is a all-or-nothing home run hitter. We know that Miguel Sano has power. He has had inconsistencies, though, because the year before that, I'm pretty sure his batting average was like 199, and his home runs were not like they were the past season. So for Miguel Sano, if he could show that he could be consistent, then we could probably move him up on this list. But because he finally had another good year after a down year, 34 home runs in 105 games is definitely very, very impressive. So he is worthy of a top 100 spot. But obviously consistency is a big part. When we get to the guys at the top of the list, the top 20, the top 10, those are guys that are consistent every single year. Great players, great production, no matter what. You know what I mean? That's what makes you one of the best players in baseball. The ability to do it constantly for a full season in every environment, whether it's on the road, at home, different weathers, in the playoffs, throughout the whole year, not just the first half, not just the second half. That's what makes the best players in baseball. At number 89, another Minnesota Twin, Mitch Garver, who in 93 games had 31 home runs and 67 runs driven in, .273 average, .365 on base percentage. Mitch Garver is an extremely interesting player to me because you think about the fact that last year he only hit 7 home runs in almost the same amount of plate appearances, but this year he hit 31 home runs. That is a major, major jump, especially in such a similar amount of at-bats. That's the really impressive thing here. So he took a huge jump. And my thing is, I'm a little concerned about the potential of a juiced baseball because, I mean, that is really not a common jump that you would have. He is a young player, so maybe he figured it out and all of a sudden he's got it going. But I need to see him more before I could say, you know what, Mitch Garver really is a great power-hitting catcher. So we do have to see if the baseball is fixed or just if this Mitch Garver is the same every single year. At number 88, another Minnesota Twins. So we had 2 Blue Jays in a row. We had 3 White Sox in a row. Now we have 3 Twins in a row. So again, a lot of stacking going on, in my opinion. Just, you know, putting everybody together, not really separating them. But at 88, we have Jorge Polanco, who made the All-Star team. In 153 games, he had 22 home runs, drove in 79 runs, had a .295 average, a .356 on base percentage, and he did pretty good in the LDS. Mitch Garver, not so much. But the thing I like about Polanco is he's a switch hitter. He could hit 20-plus home runs, which definitely was an increase for him. But he also could give you the 300 average with a pretty high on-base percentage. So I just think that he also plays shortstop. So Jorge Polanco definitely is an all-around player. So for me, I would put him above somebody like a Miguel Sano because he can do more for a team, which makes him a better all-around player. Even if Miguel Sano can hit plenty more home runs than him. Again, it's just a lot of guys in baseball that hit home runs. So I do like Jorge Polanco above those other players, and he definitely is worthy of his ranking. Probably could be a little higher, maybe, but still, it's good to see Polanco be on this list and, you know, not get snubbed or anything like that. At number 87, we have another switch hitter in Eduardo Escobar, who once was a Minnesota Twin, but with the Diamondbacks, 158 games, 35 home runs, 118 runs driven in, .269 average, .320 on base percentage. I mean, there's not much to say here. Eduardo Escobar just is a good player. He's a switch hitter as well, like I said. He obviously could give you power. He could get on base. He could drive in runs. He could play a bunch of different positions. He is just a really solid player, and I'm glad to see him on this list because I think that he is a little underrated. He's not somebody we really talk about a lot. He did not make the All-Star team, but he definitely is a solid player, so it's good to see him be on here. At number 86, another switch hitter, Carlos Santana, who did make the All-Star team. In 158 games, he had 34 home runs, 93 runs driven in, .281 average. Here's the big one, .397 on base percentage. What amazes me about Carlos Santana is that even though he's a guy who can hit over 30 home runs, he is so willing to take his walks, and he is such a tough out. To prove it, he had 108 walks this season, and he also had 108 strikeouts this season. It is so hard to have a player that could walk as much as they strike out because guys strike out a lot. I mean, we have a lot of home runs now, but we also have a lot of strikeouts. They don't take the walk as much because they're so busy trying to hit the home runs. They're not taking pitches. So it's good to see that Carlos Santana could kind of blend both and just be an all-around really good player. And the thing that Santana has, you know, over the guys like the Minnesota guys or the Chicago guys is the consistency. He is an older player. He has done this year after year. So we know that Carlos Santana is a good player. So this is a good spot for him on this list. I like where he is ranked. At number 85, we have Charlie Blackmon, who also was an all-star. In 140 games, he had 32 home runs, 86 runs driven in, .314 average, .364 on base percentage. Now, Charlie Blackmon does play in Coors Field since he is with the Colorado Rockies. But the thing is that year in, year out, Charlie Blackmon does put up really good offensive numbers. He'll give you plenty of home runs. He gives you a high average. He gives you high on-base percentage. I mean, this is kind of just the guy he is every single year. He doesn't completely jump off the map. He doesn't do anything else that is too crazy, whether it's defense or just another area of the field. But he definitely is a good hitter. So, I mean, I understand where he is ranked on this list. I mean, he maybe could be higher, but you don't want to overreact too much because of Coors Field. But still, Charlie Blackmon obviously is a good player. He was on the All-Star team. Not too much to analyze there. At number 84, Ramone Lariato from the Oakland Athletics. In 123 games, he had 24 home runs with 67 runs driven in, .288 average, .340 on base percentage. He had a hit and an RBI in the wild card game for Oakland. Now, Ramone, the thing is that when you look at his stat line, it doesn't jump off the map. Obviously, there are a lot of people on this list that had better years than him. He still is pretty young. He plays a good center field, so that definitely will put you up a couple of spots, at least on my list. At least I do value defense, especially in a position like center field. That's definitely one of the more important positions on the field. But for me, he doesn't really jump off this page to me. You know what I mean? So I think that maybe he is rated a little high. I like a Polanco. I like a Santana, an Escobar, a Blackman. I kind of like those guys better, honestly. So, I do think that he might be rated just a little too high on this list. He deserves to be on the list, but maybe just a little too high. At number 83, we have Luis Severino from the New York Yankees, who in 12 innings in the regular season, he had a 1.50 ERA. And in the postseason, he had 2 starts, both going 4 innings. The thing with Severino in the playoffs is, he definitely gets amped up. His control could be a little inconsistent. It could be a little out of command. And the thing is that his pitch count will go really high, and that's why he can't go deep into games. That's why the Yankees were only able to get 4 innings out of him, even though he didn't give up a lot of runs. There definitely were some base runners, but he didn't completely fall apart. And the thing about Severino is that we know he is capable of being one of the better pitchers in baseball, being in the running for an American League Cy Young. But the problem with him, obviously, has been health, as his health is still bothering him this season. So it's just like until, kind of like Glass now, until he can show us that he really could be a healthy, reliable pitcher, it's hard to give him a really, really good ranking that he is capable of getting. At number 82, another American League East pitcher, Blake Snell from the Tampa Bay Rays. In 23 starts, 4.29 ERA, 147 strikeouts, 40 walks. He had 1 postseason outing, and he did well. And the thing for Blake Snell is he had just won the Cy Young the year before, had some injuries at the end of the season, which definitely lingered into this season as well. And he was not the same pitcher. He still was pretty good. And the thing is that he definitely took a big bump down in the list because he did not win the Cy Young again. But we just hope that Blake Snell could return to his Cy Young form, because it's like, okay, well, we know what he's capable of, but obviously some injuries bothered him. So you do want to see him get back to that pitcher that he was before. At number 81, another pitcher in Aaron Nola from the Philadelphia Phillies, who in 34 starts had a 3.87 ERA, 229 strikeouts to 80 walks. Aaron Nola was a Cy Young finalist just a couple of years ago, so this definitely was a down year for him, but he still did pitch well. Not as good, so you could understand why he would go down in a ranking, because he wasn't as good. So, sometimes that's the thing. What I was saying about some of these younger players, these Chicago guys or these Minnesota guys, it is tough to really do it consistently. It's like, okay, well, you were a good player, but can you really build on that? Can you be better than that? Because Aaron Nola had a really good season 2 years ago, but he wasn't as good. It's really hard to match that again. So we do have to see if Aaron Nola could improve, get back to where he was, or does he continue to go down? That's going to be interesting to follow. At number 80, we have the All-Star Gary Sanchez from the New York Yankees, who in 106 games had 34 home runs, 77 runs driven in, a 232 average, a 316 on base percentage, and he was really bad in the postseason. He struck out a lot, and that's kind of been the thing with Gary. I mean, he has become this all-nothing home run hitter. It's home run or it's strikeout. And the thing for Sanchez is that we know he is capable of more, because when he first burst onto the scene, he had a much higher average, and he was not this unreliable where he would just strike out too much. I mean, Yankee fans were going crazy over him. They're like the Sanchino. You hear John Sterling, all the calls he has for him, and they were really excited for him when he first came up because he was tearing it up. But he has not been the same player since, and Yankee fans definitely are not as crazy about him as they once were. So, for Gary Sanchez, I mean, will he ever get back to that guy he was when he first came up? So again, just to prove my point, you can't overreact to these young guys from Minnesota or Chicago. They could turn out to be really good players, but it's hard to do it year after year, especially when your first year is so good. How do you keep that up? It could be very tough because teams figure you out, the pressure gets to you, or all of a sudden you just aren't that same player. Baseball is a very tough sport to be consistent in. We've seen so many players that they'll have a good year and then they'll have a really bad year, and all of a sudden they're out of the league. It definitely is a very difficult sport to always be good in. At number 79, we have another all-star catcher in Wilson Contreras from the Chicago Cubs, who in 105 games had 24 home runs, 64 runs driven in, 272 average, 355 on base percentage. So he played in one less game than Gary. They both were all-stars. He hit less home runs, but his average definitely was higher. And Wilson Contreras, he definitely has dealt with some injuries as well, which Gary did too last season. I mean, everyone on the Yankees did. They all were on the injured list at one point or another, it felt like. But the thing about Contreras is that he has a really good arm behind the plate. He definitely is a good all-around catcher. He could do a lot of different things. But he didn't have a crazy season. Even though he was an all-star, it wasn't, this remarkable year. But Wilson Contreras, he is young like Gary Sanchez, so we do know that they both are capable of more. So we'll just have to see if they can stay healthy and really maximize their potential. At number 78, we have Michael Conforto from the New York Mets, who in 151 games had 33 home runs, 92 RBIs, 257 average, and a 363 on-base percentage. As you know, I am a Mets fan, and I am pretty hard on Michael Conforto. I do think that he is a little overrated. I do think that people rave about him a little too much because the thing is, okay, well, Michael Conforto, 33 home runs. That's impressive. But look at this list. Look how many guys hit 30 home runs. Almost everybody in the Twins lineup did it. A bunch of guys on the White Sox did it. I mean, a lot. I mean, like I said, a bunch of players hit 30 home runs this season. So I need more than that if you're going to rave to be about Michael Conforto. His average isn't great. You know what I mean? 257, that's not amazing. 363 on base percentage is good. He takes his fair share of walks. I like that. But the thing is that I do think that Michael Conforto is capable of being better. And I don't see why he is so much better than these other players from the Twins or the White Sox that we've talked about so far. He is older. He has done it more. But Michael Conforto has had his inconsistencies. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he has had his really bad years. So I do think that, he plays a good right field. Okay. But I don't think he's worthy of being this high. I think he should be lower on this list, honestly. And that's coming as a Mets fan. And I like Michael Conforto. But I do think that he could be better. And I do believe that he is overrated. At number 77, we have Corey Seager from the Los Angeles Dodgers, who in 134 games hit 19 home runs, drove in 87 runs, had a 272 average with a 335 on-base percentage, and he was really bad against the Washington Nationals in the postseason last year. And the thing for Corey is similar to Gary Sanchez. When he came up with the Dodgers, he was really, really good. I mean, this is a guy that we're thinking maybe could win an MVP or something like that because he was hitting for the 300 average and he was just doing it all. Has not been the same player. He definitely had a pretty solid year, but he didn't have a crazy year. Not the kind of year that we know he is capable of having. So that is why you can't give him such a crazy rating, but you do know that he can be a really good player, but he has not done it yet. At number 76, another National League shortstop, Trey Turner from the Washington Nationals, who has given me so much trouble in the MLB The Show series. In 122 games, he had 19 home runs, driving in 57 runs with a 298 average, 353 on base percentage, 35 stolen bases because he has crazy good speed. And he was good in every series except the World Series, but you know what? He is just an all-around good player. He's a tough out. He's underrated. We don't talk about him too much, especially on that Nationals team that won the World Series. He wasn't the guy that got all the praise. He definitely is a really good player. And you know what? I like his ranking on this list because he does do a lot of different things. So I understand why he's rated there. Now, these next three, they are stacked. They all do the same position. And I think they're all underrated, honestly. At number 75, we have All-Star Aroldis Chapman from the New York Yankees. 2.28 ERA. He had 37 saves with 5 blown saves, 85 strikeouts, 25 walks. He was good against the Twins. The home run against Altuve was obviously a big thing in the playoffs last year. We talked about, the Yankee fans were really mad at Chapman, especially because they had walked the hitter before Altuve. And the thing is that, there has been this controversy of Altuve potentially wearing a buzzer when he hit the home run. We don't know quite yet. And the thing is that Aroldis Chapman, for his career, he has been pretty good in the postseason. He hasn't always been awful. And you know what? He had a good regular season for the Yankees. And he's a dominant lights-out closer. So I don't understand why he would be ranked so low on this list. I think he could be rated better. Because for me, it's like if you're dominant, if you're one of the best at your position, why would you not be rated higher? Because the other guys on this list, they're not the best at their position. You know what I mean? They're not dominant. They're not, one of the best players in baseball as far as where their position is. So I don't know why Chapman couldn't be ranked higher. I don't think that's fair to him. Next guy is another closer, Josh Hader, All-Star, 2.62 ERA, 37 saves, 7 blown saves, 6 holds, 138 strikeouts, 20 walks. Obviously, he was not good in the wild card. Blew the game there. The play in right field with Trent Grisham against the Washington Nationals. And the thing is that Josh Hader was lights out in the postseason before that for the Brew Crew. And the thing is that, like Chapman, he is dominant. He is one of the best closers in baseball. He could be ranked a lot higher on this list. I'm going to say for all three of these closers, I think they all didn't get treated fairly. I do think they should be rated better than this. At number 73, Kirby Yates. Like I said, another closer, another All-Star. 1.19 ERA, 41 saves, 3 blown saves, 101 strikeouts, 13 walks. Kirby Yates had a crazy good year. I mean, those were ridiculous numbers right there. 1.19 ERA, that kind of strikeout to walk ratio, saving 41 games on a team that wasn't that good. Definitely a lot of credit to Kirby Yates. He had a tremendous season. Now, the thing is that can you follow that up? Because you know what? Somebody like Edwin Diaz had a tremendous season. All of a sudden, the next year with the Mets, not so much. And he did change teams. Obviously, Kirby Yates still is a San Diego Padre, so you do expect him to still do well. I mean, he has been a good reliever. But, I mean, it is really hard to follow that kind of season. I mean, that's almost a perfect season right there. We think of that kind of ERA. So, we'll see what happens with him. But, again, like the rest of the closers, could be rated better in my mind. I would rate all of them higher, honestly. I do think they're worthy of a better spot. At number 72, Max Kepler, who in 134 games had 36 home runs, 90 runs driven in, 252 average, 336 on base percentage, 0 for 10 the ALDS. Now, why is Max Kepler rated higher than Jorge Polanco and so much higher than Polanco and Garver and Miguel Sano? When he was on the same team as them, he's a young player, and his season wasn't that much better than those other guys because they all hit over 30 home runs, and his average was only in the 250s. So I do think that Max Kepler is rated too high on this list. I don't think he's better than Jorge Polanco, and he's not much better than Garver and Miguel Sano. They're all in that same, part of the list. And I know I complained about them getting stacked, but he's not this much better than them. I mean, come on. Is Max Kepler better than Hader, Chapman, and Kirby Yates? I mean, these guys are some of the best in baseball at their respective position. I mean, is Max Kepler one of the best outfielders in baseball? No, he's not. So I don't think he should be rated over those guys, and that definitely is a problem for me. At number 71, Nicolas Castellanos, another right fielder. 151 games, 27 home runs, 73 runs driven in, 289 average, 337 on base percentage. Nicolas Castellanos did most of his damage in the second half when he was traded to the Chicago Cubs. I mean, that's where he hit 16 of his home runs. And my thing with Castellanos is, can he do it for a full season? Can he do it in both halves? We'll see what kind of year he has again. I mean, because he was just red hot. He got a lot of those home runs in a very short time span. So it kind of boosted his numbers at the end. And he definitely is a good hitter and a really good player. Don't get me wrong. But again, he's not better than Trey Turner or Polanco or these closers or some of the other players on this list. I do think he is rated a little too high. At number 70, we have Josh Bell, who was an all-star, 143 games, 37 home runs, 116 RBIs, 277 average, 367 on base percentage. One thing I like about Josh Bell is he is a switch hitter, and obviously he has a ton of power with the 37 home runs. But the real crazy thing for me with Josh Bell is that he had 12 home runs last season. And he had a good amount of plate appearances. So, like Mitch Garver, this was a crazy big jump in production. So that is a little fishy to me. I do wonder if the baseball was altered, how much did that alter his performance? So if the baseball is fixed, I would like to see what Josh Bell could do. I mean, can he follow that up? That's pretty tough because that definitely is a big jump for him in his career. He obviously still is very young, but again, that definitely is a big change in his number. At number 69, we have Jorge Soler, DH from the Kansas City Royals. In 162 games, he had 48 home runs with 117 runs driven in, 265 average, 355 on base percentage, and his previous career high was 12 home runs as well. Jorge Soler has gotten inconsistent playing time in his career. Obviously, he got plenty of playing time, playing in every single game for the Royals, and he made the most of it, hitting those 48 home runs. And you know what? That definitely is another huge boost in production from the way the rest of his career was. So I'm just very curious to see, can Jorge Soler keep that up or even be close to that? Because he just hasn't done that before. And if that baseball was changed, how much did that help him? So definitely a crazy year from Jorge Soler. And, it's like a lot of these young guys, can they continue to do it? Because this is their first time having a crazy year like this. Because like I said, the players at the top, they do this year after year. Maybe not 48 home runs, but having really good seasons. They do it all the time. And Jorge Soler is a DH. He doesn't really do anything else, so it's hard to give him too great of a rating for an all-around player. At number 68, we do have an all-around player, a player I do like, Tommy Pham, who with the Tampa Bay Rays in 145 games hit 21 home runs, drove in 68 runs, 275 average, 369 on base percentage, and he did really well for Tampa in the playoffs. I like him a lot. He's an all-around player. He can steal bases. He could play a good outfield. He puts the ball in play. He draws his walks. He can hit home runs. I think that Tommy Pham could do it all, and he doesn't get enough praise. But in this list, he definitely got a really good rating, so I'm glad to see that. And so unfortunately that Tampa traded him. I don't really like that. I don't agree with it, but I've said it in a video before, but I give them the benefit of the doubt. I feel like they know what they're doing because most of the moves they make are the right moves. But Tommy Pham definitely is a good player, and I'm glad to see that he did make the list. At number 67, we have all-star Mike Soroka, who in 29 starts with the Braves had a 2.68 ERA, 142 strikeouts, 41 walks, and he was really good in the one postseason start he made against the Cardinals. Now, Soroka is a rookie. He is extremely young. So, you know what? Can he follow this up? He definitely had a tremendous season. But again, with these young pitchers, can they do it again? That's always the really important thing to keep in mind. So I have to see how the rest of his career goes. I mean, what if he runs into some injury trouble? We never know. Maybe it could be like Blake Snell, but we'll see what happens with Soroka. At number 66, we have Zack Greinke, another all-star pitcher. 33 starts with the Diamondbacks and Astros. 2.93 ERA, 187 strikeouts, 30 walks. He wasn't good against Tampa Bay in the first series. He was okay against the Yankees, and he did pretty good against the Washington Nationals. And he's been good before in his postseason career. Obviously, Greinke admitted to having anxiety, problems during the playoffs. And you know what? The 2.93 ERA, Greinke has been consistent. He has been a really good pitcher in this league for a long time. I think he could be ranked a little better just because he has constantly been so consistent, and he kept his ERA under 3. His strikeout to walk ratio was really good, and he did make the All-Star team, and he did it with 2 different teams. So I do think that Greinke could be worthy of a better spot. But you know what? He is a good player. At number 65, we have Yordan Alvarez, DH from the Houston Astros. In 87 games, he had 27 home runs, drove in 78 runs, 3.13 average, 4.12 on base percentage. He did good against Tampa. He was really bad against the Yankees in the championship series, but he did do very well against the Washington Nationals in the World Series. And for Yordan, he's a rookie. He's a DH. So to me, I can only rank him so high. But you know what? In his limited amount of games, 87 games, he was tearing the cover off the ball. I mean, he did so well. 27 homers, 3.13 average, 4.12 on base percentage. I mean, he was just going off in the little amount of playing time that he had with Houston late in the season. So it's like, can you follow that up? That's pretty tough to do because, I mean, again, he just did so well in a short amount of time. It'd be curious to see if he could follow that up, especially if the baseball was juiced or if they were using buzzers or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of Houston Nationals on this list, and I'm going to say it for all of them. You know what? Between the ball possibly being changed and teams being more aware of what Houston might be doing on the side, it's going to be really curious to see how these Houston National players can follow it up and still be good players despite all the controversy surrounding them. At number 64, All-Star Joey Gallo. Only 70 games, but he hit 22 home runs, drove in 49 runs, 253 average, 389 on base percentage. He's a really good defender. He could play a lot of positions, and he plays them well. And obviously, we know he has power. He's been consistent. He's done it before. So I do like Joey Gallo on this list. He could be ranked a little better, but it's good to see that he's in around the right ballpark. So I can't complain too much. At number 62, we have Giancarlo Stanton from the New York Yankees. In only 18 games, had 3 home runs, drove in 13 runs, 288 average, 403 on base percentage. He wasn't that good in the playoffs, and he wasn't that good in the playoffs the year before either. So for Giancarlo, obviously the big thing now has become the injuries. He had some injuries with the Marlins, but for the most part, he was on the field, and he performed really well, much better than he has as a member of the Yankees. Maybe the pressure of New York is bothering him. Maybe changing his stance is bothering him. And obviously the injuries definitely are bothering him. So for Giancarlo, he really has to get on the field and stay healthy. I mean, he already was looking like he was going to miss opening day if they did, in fact, have opening day this year. So, I mean, really have to see if he ever could really live up to the contract that he has and become that player again that he was with the Miami Marlins. At number 62, we have Chris Sale from the Boston Red Sox. And in 25 starts, had a 4.40 ERA, 218 strikeouts to 37 walks. Chris Sale, obviously, it was a down year for him. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, definitely one of the best pitchers in the American League. He was right there in the Cy Young race with Blake Snell the year before. And obviously, injuries have bothered him, and injuries are bothering him again as well, so similar to Luis Severino. And for Chris Sale, it's like if he can't get his injury sorted out, will he ever be able to get back to that top-tier pitcher that he was? I do think that's going to be something really interesting to follow with him. At number 61, we have All-Star Clayton Kershaw, who in 28 starts had a 3.03 ERA, struck out 189 batters, 41 walks. He was bad in the playoffs, and we know the Kershaw postseason story. He usually is bad in the playoffs. That's kind of become the theme with his career. One of the best pitchers of our generation, but when it comes to the playoffs, he has not been the same guy. But all in all, he still had a really good year, and like I said, he's been one of the best pitchers of our generation. He made the All-Star team. Clayton Kershaw is worthy of a much better spot on this list. This is way too low for him. I do think that he definitely got disrespected, and you know what? He definitely could be higher. So I don't like where he's ranked. I would have rated him better than this. At number 60, we have Yoan Moncada from the Chicago White Sox, who in 132 games hit 25 home runs, drove in 79 runs, 315 average, 367 on base percentage. He is a switch hitter. He's a pretty good defender. His batting average took a big increase from where it was last year. Obviously worried about the juice ball. And Moncada had a good year. He is still young. And how is he that much better than Eloy and Tim Anderson, who won the batting title, and Jose Abreu, who's always really consistent? I don't really know about that. So I do think that Moncada is rated a little high. He is a good player, don't get me wrong. But is he that much better than his teammates? I don't know about that. At number 59, this is probably my biggest problem on the list, Manny Machado, who in 156 games had 32 home runs, 85 runs driven in, 256 average, 334 on base percentage. Obviously, Manny Machado had just got a big contract. This was his first year with the San Diego Padres. His batting average did take a big dip. The year before, Manny Machado's average was much higher than this. And the thing is that, to me, Manny Machado is still a tremendous player. He is still a really good player. He's one of the best defenders in all of baseball still. I mean, he still hit over 30 home runs. He still gave you production. I still think that Manny Machado is a top 30 player in this league. He is not number 59. There is no way there are 58 greater players than Manny Machado right now. That is just straight up craziness. That definitely is just my biggest problem on this list. I would have rated Machado much, much better. He does not deserve to be this low on the list. I do think that is just a crime right there. That is really, really bad. I have a big problem with that, honestly. I really do. At number 58, we have all-star Shan Bieber from the Cleveland Indians, who in 33 starts had a 3.28 ERA, 259 strikeouts, 40 walks. Bieber definitely had a big boost in his production from the year before. He definitely showed some improvements. Obviously, he was on the all-star team. But can he do it again? Because, you know what, was his first year being that good. I'm really curious to see, can he do it again? Because, obviously, like a lot of these other guys, he still is very young. At number 57, Shohei Ohtani, who didn't pitch at all. He's definitely had some injuries with the elbow, so he's only been limited hitting. And in his at-bats, 106 games, 18 home runs, 62 RBIs, 286 average, 343 on base percentage. What on here makes Shohei Ohtani worthy of this spot on the list? He didn't have a great offensive season. I mean, it was okay. It's pretty good. It's not great. There's so many guys that could give you that much production in this league. And he didn't even pitch because he was hurt. So how is he better than Machado? How is he better than so many other guys on the list? How is he better than Kershaw, than Greinke, than Joey Gallo, than Severino, than Chris Sale, than so many players on this list? Shohei Ohtani is rated way, way too high on this list. I don't agree with that at all. So I don't like that ranking at all for him. That is way too good. At number 56, we have the all-star Whit Merrifield from the Kansas City Royals in 162 games. 16 home runs, 74 RBIs, 302 average, 340 on base percentage. He has good speed. He has a good glove. He can play a lot of positions. Whit Merrifield is an all-around really good player, and I like this spot on him for the list. I like that he was able to get this high on the list because he does deserve it. Since the Kansas City Royals are so bad, he gets no love. He gets no attention. I mean, he didn't make the all-star team, but still, I do like that Whit Merrifield got the recognition that he deserves. This is a good spot for him on the list. At number 55, we have Ozzie Albies from the Atlanta Braves. In 160 games, he had 24 home runs, drove in 86 runs, 295 average, 352 on base percentage. He wasn't that good in the playoffs. He is a switch hitter, and he has a good glove. He has good speed. And Ozzie Albies definitely is a really good player. He is a consistent player. I mean, obviously with the Mets, we watch him face them a lot, and he always does really well. He played 160 games. He was out there basically every single day. And Ozzie Albies, he's a really good player. He's still very young. And I'm curious to see what his career looks like. Will he continue to improve? Because he's definitely on a good track, and this is a good spot from the list. Maybe could be rated a little higher, honestly, but Ozzie Albies is a good player. At number 54, we have Justin Turner from the Los Angeles Dodgers. In 135 games, hit 27 home runs, 67 RBIs, 290 average, 372 on base percentage. He was pretty good in the playoffs. He hit a few home runs, and he's been pretty good in the playoffs for his career. I don't think that he's better than some of the other players on this list, so I'm not crazy about his rating, but he does deserve to be on the list. At number 53, we have another Dodger who is now a Toronto Blue Jay, all-star Hyun-Jin Ryu, who in 29 starts had a 2.32 ERA, 163 strikeouts, 24 walks. He was lights out in the first half. I mean, he was really, really good. He was on pace to win the Cy Young, but then the second half, he definitely faltered, was not the same guy at all, but he did pretty well in his one postseason start. So I'm really curious to see if he could do it again, if he could do it in the American League, in Rogers Center in Toronto. So, I mean, this was the first time that we saw Hyun-Jin Ryu be this good of a pitcher. And like I said, he definitely was not the same the second half it was in the first half. It was hard to keep that up. I mean, that's how good he was in the first half. At number 52, we have another all-star pitcher in Charlie Morton. In 33 starts for Charlie Morton, he had a 3.05 ERA, 240 strikeouts, 57 walks. He was really good in the postseason, and he has postseason experience when he was with the Astros. And it was good to see that Charlie Morton is still a good pitcher with Tampa like he was in Houston, because when he got to Houston, he wasn't that great, but then he did well, and he's able to continue with that. And Charlie Morton is just a really good pitcher. I like him, and I'm glad to see him be this high on the list. I do think this is a good spot for him. At number 51, we have Nelson Cruz with the Minnesota Twins, who in 120 games hit 41 home runs, drove in 108 runs, 311 average, 392 on base percentage. he wasn't that good in the playoffs, but you know what? Nelson Cruz has been very consistent. He gives you 40 home runs. He drives in 100 runs. He had above 300 average. He almost had a 400 on base percentage. He just had a crazy good year at an advanced age as a DH. So you definitely got to give Nelson Cruz love for that, for being so consistent. So I understand why he's rated so high on the list, just because he's done it for so long. I mean, he has had some steroids in his career and what have you, but all in all, he still has been a good player. At number 50, we have Jose Ramirez from Cleveland Indians. In 129 games, he had 23 home runs, drove in 83 runs, had a 255 average, 327 on base percentage. He's got versatility. He has a good glove. He has good speed. Definitely a down year for him. He has dealt with some injuries. Jose Ramirez is capable of being a much better player, and he has been a much better player. And this was a down year for him, so, I mean, they definitely bumped him down a lot on the list. I do believe that he deserves being higher on this list just because I know he is a good player. But, I mean, he has to prove that he can get back to that kind of a player. Number 49, we have Jeff McNeil from the New York Mets, all-star, my favorite player. 133 games, 23 home runs, 75 RBIs, 318 average, 384 on base percentage. He has versatility, and he has a good glove no matter what position they put him at. Obviously, I watched a lot of Jeff McNeil. I know he is a very good player. I'm glad that he got this much love on the list. He deserves it. And for me, Jeff McNeil, is he better than some of these other players? Probably not. But still, I'm just glad to see that he did get the recognition, because Jeff McNeil just is a really good all-around player, and he is still young, so we'll see what he can do. I mean, he can win a batting title. He definitely can do it. But he has to, keep the high average for the full season, not just the first half. So I want to see what kind of year he has. Does he continue with the increased power, or does he go back to being a batting average player? Whenever this baseball season does start, I want to see what kind of year we get out of Jeff McNeil. At number 48, we have Patrick Corbin. In 33 starts, he had a 3.25 ERA, struck out 238 batters with 70 walks. He wasn't great until the World Series, where he did pitch well in the playoffs. Patrick Corbin got the big deal. I mean, he had a pretty good season. Don't get me wrong, he definitely had a good year, but it wasn't better than Kershaw's year, so I don't know why he's rated higher than him on this list. I really don't. I don't know why he's rated higher than Greinke. I do think this is too high for Patrick Corbin, and I think the Nationals probably gave him too much money. Honestly, they got the World Series ring, so I guess it's worth it, but I didn't think Patrick Corbin was worthy of that kind of money for that many years. At number 47, Mike Clevinger, pitcher from the Cleveland Indians. 21 starts, 2.71 ERA, 169 strikeouts, 37 walks. Like Bieber, Mike Clevinger definitely showed some improvements for Cleveland this year. And you know what? He had a good year, 21 starts. So I understand why he's rated on this list. Maybe a little high, honestly, just because he isn't that much better than Bieber. He's not better than Kershaw. Is he better than Corbin? Maybe. You know what I mean? Like, he's not better than Charlie Morton, in my opinion. Not better than Hyun-Jin Ryu, the year that Ryu had. So I do think that Clevinger is rated a little too high on this list, from my opinion. At number 46, we have Paul Goldschmidt, first baseman from the St. Louis Cardinals. In 161 games, he had 34 home runs, drove in 97 runs, had a 260 average. He did really well against the Braves and LDS, but he was not good against the Nationals in the championship series. And Paul Goldschmidt is just a really good first baseman. We know he's won Gold Gloves in the past. We know that he gets on base. And for me, I just think that this is too low for Paul Goldschmidt. Yes, it was a down year for him because his average was a little lower, but we know that Paul Goldschmidt is a really good player. So I do think that he could be rated higher on this list, especially the guy that's from number 45, Austin Meadows from the Tampa Bay Rays, an all-star. In 138 games, he had 33 home runs, 89 RBIs, 291 average, 364 on base percentage, and he was really bad in the playoffs. Now, Austin Meadows is a good hitter. Don't get me wrong. Very good hitter. Made the all-star team, but ball might have been juice. Number 2, he's still extremely young. How is he this much better than the guys on the Twins or the guys on the White Sox? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Austin Meadows is worthy of being better than Paul Goldschmidt. There's so many other players on this list. I would have rated him much, much lower, closer to the rest of those young guys in Minnesota and Chicago. So I don't understand how he was better than all these guys. I mean, he is just like way, way lower on my list. This is my opinion, you know what I mean? You could have a different opinion. You may think Austin Meadows is better or worse, but for me, he's still too young. I mean, he can be top 50 eventually, maybe, but not yet. Not yet. That's just my opinion. He's still too young. At number 44, Michael Brantley, another all-star with the Houston Nationals. 148 games, 22 home runs for Brantley, 90 runs driven in, 311 average, 372 on base percentage. He was really good in the playoffs, except the first round against the Tampa Bay Rays. But you know what? Michael Brantley is extremely consistent. He always puts the ball in play, always hits for a high average. He has done this year after year after year. He made some nice plays in the playoffs for Houston out in left field. So it's good to see that Michael Brantley was finally healthy for a full year, and he made the most of it and has been the player that we know he is capable of being. Little high for him, honestly. He is a really good hitter, and I like Michael Brantley a lot. Don't get me wrong, but he's not better than Paul Goldschmidt, and he's not better than some other players on this list. But I'm glad Michael Brantley, again, is on the list. At number 43, another Houston National, Carlos Correa, who in 75 games had 21 home runs, 59 runs driven in, 279 average, 348 on base percentage. He had some big home runs against the Yankees, but he had a bad postseason for the most part. And like a lot of these Astros, we don't know the exact kind of hitter Correa is quite yet because we don't know what Houston has been doing. Have they still been cheating? Are they wearing buzzers? We don't really know yet. Was the ball juiced? We don't really know yet. So I do think that Correa, I mean, he also has to prove that he could be healthy for a full season because injuries have started to bother him these last couple years, and he hasn't been the same player. He's still been good, but not the same player. We know he has speed. We know he can play a good shortstop, but Correa, I mean, there still is a lot of question marks surrounding him, so we'll see. Can he still be rated this high on next year's list? At number 42, we have Yasmani Grandal, all-star catcher from the Milwaukee Brewers, who is now with the White Sox. In 153 games, he had 28 home runs, 77 runs driven in, 246 average, 380 on base finish. He had a home run in the wild card game, but you have to remember the year before that, his playoffs was absolutely atrocious with the Dodgers. He was dropping everything. He couldn't hit. He was striking out a bunch. So that's why I wasn't crazy about trying to get him for the Mets perspective. But you know what? He definitely had a good year for the Brew Crew. For me, he has a little or nothing. He has home run, walk, strikeout. That's kind of his game. He, frames pitches really well, but that's about it. That's all he does. I mean, he's way too streaky for me. 246 average just isn't good enough for me. So I do think that Yasmani Grandal is a little overrated. He is one of the best catchers in baseball. I won't deny that. But I do think that he's a little overrated. I like the guy ahead of him much better. JT Realmuto from the Philadelphia Phillies, who also made the All-Star team. In 145 games, 25 home runs, 83 RBIs, 275 average, 328 on base percentage. Realmuto has a gun behind the plate. He could throw out anybody. He has a lot of speed for a catcher. Puts the ball in play a lot more, so I like all that better. You know the way I am. I just like JT Realmuto more than Yasmani Grandal. I think he is significantly better than him. I do think that he is a better player. Not just one spot better, but a few spots better. So I would have, had them a little more apart. I wouldn't stack them, one after another like the way a lot of this list has been. Whether you play the same position or you're on the same team, you're going together on the list. Not crazy about that, honestly. It should be a lot more spread out. This is the top 100 players. Take consideration every single position on the baseball diamond. But for me, I do think that Realmuto could be rated a little higher, maybe. But I do think they should be rated, further apart from Grandal. At number 40, Raphael Deborah from the Boston Red Sox. 156 games, 32 home runs, 115 RBIs, 311 average, 361 on base percentage. Devers still is extremely young. He definitely had a big boost, especially in his batting average. The ball might have been juiced, but the thing is, Devers, he's a really good hitter. I mean, like I said, he had a good year, but he still is so young. Like, how come him and Austin Meadows are so much higher than the rest of these young guys? I mean, I don't understand why he is, so much higher than the Twin guys and the White Sox guys. I do think that, he's better than them, but not this much better. Same Austin Meadows, not that much better. I think this is too high for Devers, and he's really good. But again, he's too young. He needs to show that he could do it for years to come. And, could he be better than this? We'll see. At number 39, we have Anthony Rizzo, 146 games, 27 home runs, 94 runs driven in, 293 average, 405 on base percentage. I really like Anthony Rizzo. He is such an all-around player. He gets big hits. He puts the ball in play. He gets on base. He plays a really good first base, and he just does it all. I do like Rizzo a lot. Maybe could be rated a little higher on this list in my opinion. I ran above a couple of these guys on here, but I'm glad to see that he was rated this high, but he still could be higher. At number 38, another first baseman, Matt Olson from the Oakland Athletics, who in 127 games hit 36 home runs, 91 runs driven in, 267 average, 351 on base percentage. He went 1 for 3 in the wild card game with a walk, and Matt Olson also was a Gold Glove winner. So Matt Olson definitely could hit home runs and play a good first base. And he definitely is a really good player. Is he better than Rizzo? Not in my opinion. I'd rather have Rizzo than him. Matt Olson is younger, but still, I like Rizzo better personally. At number 37, we have DJ LeMahieu from the New York Yankees, All-Star, who in 145 games hit 26 home runs, drove in 102 runs, 327 average, 375 on base percentage, and he was really good in the playoffs in every series. And for me, DJ LeMahieu is still underrated. I think DJ LeMahieu should have been MVP finalist. I wrote about that. I think that he's better than a lot of players. I think he did so much for this Yankees team. He played a bunch of positions. He played them well. He was healthy while everyone else was hurt. He was hitting every month. He never had any slumps, it felt like. He was big in the playoffs. He got clutch hits. I mean, he did everything. I mean, what more is there to say? I mean, he's been a Gold Glove winner before. He's won a batting title before, whether it's at Coors Field. Yankee Stadium is still a hitter-friendly ballpark, but it's not Coors Field. He still hit well. He hit well on the road. Like, what more is there to say about DJ LeMahieu? What can't he do? You know what I mean? I think he's worthy of a much, much better spot on this list. I'm a big DJ LeMahieu fan. I really believe that he has been severely underrated. I really do. In the MVP finalist and on this list. I think LeMahieu is definitely better than this because I watched a lot of him being, playing for a New York team, and I live in New York. I watched a lot of LeMahieu. I read a lot about him. I heard a lot about him. I know he's better than that. At number 36, we have Max Muncy, All-Star, 141 games, 35 home runs, 98 RBIs, 251 average, 374 on base percentage. He had 3 home runs in the LDS, so he did well there. But Max Muncy, he's all nothing home run here. I mean, he had 35 home runs. He had a 251 average. He can get on base, okay, but how does it make him this much different than a lot of other players? Yes, he could play a couple other positions. That's good. But is he that much better than a lot of these all-nothing home run hitters? I don't think so. I really don't. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. But I think he's rated a little too high. I like Rizzo better. I like LeMahieu better. I like Real Muto better. I like Paul Goldschmidt better. I like a lot of players better than Max Muncy. He is still young. And for me, how much better was it than Paul Goldschmidt? He wasn't. He really wasn't. And Goldschmidt is just more proven. He's won Gold Gloves. He's just more reliable, more productive. So, I don't know. That's just me, honestly. At number 35, we have Eugenio Suarez from the Cincinnati Reds, who in 159 games hit 49 home runs, drove in 104 runs, 271 average, 350 on base percentage. He is a good defender. Obviously, had a bunch of home runs. He had a lot of them late. And he does play a Great American Ballpark. The ball might have been juiced. So Suarez, he definitely hit a bunch of home runs. Is he a lot better than some of these other guys? I mean, he had one more home run than Soler. Yes, his defense is a lot better. But still, I mean, he hit like a lot of the DHs did. I mean, Yordan Alvarez, he's a DH as well. But I guess because he plays a position, he's better than these guys. But this much better? I don't really know about that. And he is still young. This is the first, really, really big year for him. He is capable of hitting home runs, but not at this level. So I do want to see in a year where, ball might not be juiced, can he do it again? Because he is still young. At number 34, we have Kris Bryant, All-Star. 147 games, 31 home runs, 77 RBIs, 282 average, 382 on base percentage. He could play multiple positions. Kris Bryant, he's a guy that's talked about a lot. He's supposed to be better for the Cubs, though. I mean, he's a guy that can hit for a higher average, and he had a pretty good year. I mean, like Kris Bryant, is he better than Machado? Is he better than some other guys on this list? Is he better than Kershaw? Is he better than a lot of guys on this list? I don't know. I think he's rated a little high, honestly. At number 33, we have Bryce Harper from the Philadelphia Phillies. In 157 games, hit 35 home runs, drove in 114 runs, 260 average, 372 on base percentage. He plays a pretty good right field. He could steal some bases. He could get some clutch hits. I think Bryce Harper is better than this. I think he's a top 25 player in the league, maybe even top 20. So I do think that Bryce Harper definitely is a little low. I would have rated him much better. At number 32, we have rookie Fernando Tatis Jr. In 84 games, hit 22 home runs, 53 RBIs, 317 average, 379 base percentage. He has speed, and he's a very good defender. Fernando Tatis Jr., he could do it all. I mean, there's nothing he can't do. But he is still young, and he has some injury troubles. And, he played half a rookie season, and he's already better than Rizzo, and he's better than, Bryce Harper and Machado, and so many other players. Paul Goldschmidt, he's already better than all these guys. I don't know about that. You know what I mean? Better than DJ LeMahieu? I don't know. Not yet. Maybe eventually. He can be. No, don't get wrong. We know the potential and the talent that Fernando Tatis Jr. has. I mean, everybody knows that. So, no question about it. But is he 32 yet? I don't know about that. At number 31, another really young player, Gleyber Torres from the Yankees, All-Star. 144 games, 38 home runs, 90 RBIs, 278 average, 337 on base percentage, and he definitely had good moments for the Yankees in the playoffs. Definitely against the Houston series, he was carrying the team. He was getting a lot of hits. He looked unstoppable. But Gleyber, he's not better than Machado yet. You know what I mean? He's not better than Bryce Harper. He's not better than a lot of players. Not a lot of players, but I do think that Gleyber may be rated a little too high, honestly. He's very good, and he could turn out to be one of the better players in baseball, but again, not yet. At number 30, Marcus Semien, 162 games, 33 home runs, 92 RBIs, 285 average, 369 base percentage. He has a good glove. He got to hit the wild card game. All right, Marcus Semien is an all-around player. He's good. His WAR is through the roof. Great. But I don't think that Marcus Semien is better than some of these other players. I really don't. I think he's overrated. He's not better than DJ LeMahieu. He's not better than Bryce Harper. He's not better than Manny Machado. He's not better than Paul Goldschmidt. He's not better than a lot of players on this list, in my opinion. I don't think he's better than Gleyber. I mean, Tatis is eventually going to be better than him. Is he better than, JT Realmuto? Is he better than Zach Greinke? Is he better than Jeff McNeil? Is he better than Jose Ramirez? I don't know. I mean, Marcus Semien, I think he's too high, honestly. I just don't agree with his spot on the list. At number 29, we have Walker Buehler, All-Star, in 30 starts, 3.26 ERA, 215 strikeouts, 37 walks. He pitched really well against the Nationals in the playoffs. But you know what? He didn't have a better year than Kershaw, and they're on the same team, and Kershaw has done it for a long amount of time. Walker Buehler still is very young, and a lot of people see a really high ceiling for him. They think he's going to be one of the best pitchers in the National League for years to come, but he hasn't done it yet. So for me, it's like, again, the key word is yet. If you're holding back some of these other young players earn the list from Minnesota and Chicago, you have to do the same for the Tatis and the Glaber and the Walker Buehler. And the next guys like Jack Flaherty, who I like, who went 33 starts, had a 2.75 ERA, 231 strikeouts, 55 walks. He was very good against the Braves, not so much against the Nationals. Is he this much better than Soroka? Is he this much better than Aaron Nola, than Clayton Kershaw, than Zach Greinke, a lot of the pitchers on this list? No, he isn't. Him and Walker Buehler both are not this much better than where some of the other pitchers are ranked. So I think both of them are too high. They both could turn out to be two of the best pitchers in the National League eventually, but again, not yet. It's just inconsistencies with this list. You have some young players who are really low, but then some young players who are really high. So I don't really agree with that. You have to show me some kind of consistency with this list. At number 27, Jd Martinez, an all-star, 146 games, 36 home runs, 105 RBIs, 304 average, 303 on base percentage. Jd Martinez had a good year, obviously. I mean, over 30 home runs, over 100 RBIs, over 300 average. Very good. He's a DH. How many other DHs had this kind of year? Nelson Cruz had a better year than him. Eugenio Suarez had a better year than him. A lot of hitters had a very similar year than Jd Martinez. Why is he so much higher than everybody else? He had a down year from last year. Last year was better, but you know what? Because Machado had a down year, or because Bryce Harper had a down year, or some other Paul Goldschmidt had a down year, these guys got beat up bad on the list. So how come Jd Martinez doesn't do the same thing? At least Machado still plays go-go defense, and Bryce Harper still plays good defense, and Paul Goldschmidt still plays good defense. Jd Martinez is way too high on this. And I like Jd Martinez, but he's way too high. He's a DH. How could a DH be this much higher than some of the other DHs, and good hitters, and good defenders, and guys who are all-around players? That makes no sense to me at all. Jd Martinez, way too high. And I like him, but way too high. At number 26, Josh Donaldson with the Atlanta Braves, now with the Minnesota Twins. 155 games, 37 home runs, 94 RBIs. A lot of them were against the Mets, honestly. 259 average, 379 on base percentage. He was not good in the playoffs this year, but he has been good in the playoffs before. Now, Josh Donaldson, he's getting a little up there in age, so he's not going to be an MVP again. The Minnesota Twins definitely gave him a lot of money, and he had a really nice bounce-back year. Is he this much better than some of the other players on this list? I don't think so. Josh Donaldson is good, not this much better than some other players on this list. No way. Not better than Harper, not better than Machado, not better than a lot of guys on here. Obviously, my main thing you hear me say, but I think Machado and Harper should be much higher on this list. I mean, those are just the two guys I think really got treated unfairly because, they got big contracts, so now they can't be good players anymore? I mean, they weren't great, but they're still better than some of these other players on here. Ketel Marte, all-star, 144 games, 32 home runs, 92 RBIs, 329 average, 389 on base percentage. He did it all. He could play a lot of positions. He's a switch hitter. He has speed. So we know Ketel Marte is capable of, doing it all and being an all-star. Top 25 player? Not yet, because he doubled his home runs. His batting average is more than 80 points higher than it was in the previous years. So it's like, you know what? Just because he had one big year, he's way better than all these other players. I don't know about that. I think he could be rated much, much lower. You know what? His teammate, Eduardo Escobar, he had a pretty similar season. I mean, Eduardo Escobar was rated 88, 87? And Ketel Marte is 25? I know he's younger, but still, I mean, that's a big difference in between those two players. At number 24, All-Star Pete Alonso for the New York Mets, 161 games, 53 home runs, 120 RBIs, 260 average, 350 on base percentage. Alonso, his defense was okay. He made some nice plays. He made some bad plays. He's not that fast. Hit for a 260 average. Could have been better. He struck out a lot. Pete Alonso, he's a good leader. He gets the team fired up. That's great. A lot of guys hit a lot of home runs last year. Eugenio Suarez did. Nelson Cruz did. Jorge Soler did. A lot of players hit a lot of home runs last year. The ball might have been juiced. I love Pete Alonso, but he's not rated this high on this list. Honestly, Jeff McNeil is a better player than Pete Alonso. I watch both of them a lot. McNeil is better. So that's just me. Pete Alonso should be much lower on this list. I love Pete, but he should be much lower. We have to be fair. We can't let our biases blind our judgment. I love Pete Alonso, but I'm going to be fair with all my players that I like, all the players I root for. Alonso is not that good. Not yet. Maybe his average could go up, but it's hard to, hit 53 home runs again. That's really hard to duplicate because Judge has been able to do it ever since in his rookie year. So we'll see what happens there. At number 23, Javi Baez, All-Star, 138 games, 29 home runs, 85 RBIs, 281 average, 316 on base percentage. He has speed, he has versatility, he has excellent defense, he has a heads-up player, he makes big-time plays, unexpected plays, and Javi Baez deserves to be higher on this list, especially because there are two shortstops ahead of him, and I think Javi Baez is better than both of them. I think Javi Baez is one of the better players in baseball. Had a down year last year. He was almost in the MVP running with Yelich the year before Yelich really took off at the end. But I do think that Javi Baez is better than this, even though he had a little bit of a down year. We still know what he's capable of. Number 22, another shortstop, Xander Bogaerts, All-Star, 155 games, 33 home runs, 117 RBIs, 309 average, 384 on base percentage. A lot of guys had this stat line. A lot of guys over 30 home runs, had over 300 averages. What makes Xander Bogaerts so much better than a lot of these other players? Bogaerts is still young. He hasn't done it for a bunch of years. Doesn't play the best shortstop. Not a great has speed or anything like that. So Xander Bogaerts is too high on this list in my opinion. Really good player. Not better than Javi Baez. Not better than some other players on this list. At number 21, Trevor Story. 145 games, 35 home runs, 85 RBIs, 294 average, 363 on base percentage. Great speed. Great defense. He plays in Coors Field, so his numbers are a little boosted, and I like Javi Baez better personally. So I think Trevor Story, a little too high on this list. At number 20, Steven Strasburg, 33 starts, 3.32 ERA, 251 strikeouts, 56 walks. He was excellent in the postseason. You know what, Strasburg, I like him a lot. I'm a big fan of his. Like I say, he was great in the postseason. A lot of pitchers had a better regular season than him, though. And Strasburg is getting a little older than some of these other guys. So I think that Strasburg, he was great in the postseason, don't get me wrong. But he's just a little high in my opinion, just a little bit. He definitely could be lower. At number 19, Matt Chapman, All-Star from the Oakland A's. 156 games, 36 home runs, 91 RBIs, 249 average, 342 on base percentage. Obviously, he's an amazing defender, and he got a hit in the wild card game. Matt Chapman, he's very similar to Manny Machado. I mean, their numbers are like so similar. It's crazy. But Matt Chapman is like, what, 40 spots better, 30 spots better than Machado? That's ridiculous. He's not better than Javi Baez. He's not better than a lot of players. Matt Chapman is really good, but he's not better than Bryce Harper or some other players on here. So I think Matt Chapman definitely overrated on here. At number 18, George Springer, All-Star at the Astros. 122 games, 39 home runs, 96 RBIs, 292 average, 383 on base percentage. He was bad against Tampa, hit some homers against the Yankees, and he did really good against the Nationals. And he's played a good center field, but this was a big increase in production from last year. We know Springer is a really good player, but he definitely had a big boost. And again, with the Astros, there's always so much unknown. Were there buzzers? Were there sign stealing? Whatever. We still don't know the exact player George Springer is capable of, so there is a chance that he could become lower on this list next year. At number 17, another Houston Astros, Altuve. So again, with the stacking, we have the three shortstops. We got back-to-back Astros, but Altuve, 124 games, 31 homers, 74 runs driven in, 298 average, 353 on base percentage. He was tremendous in the postseason. Again, obviously there's controversy with him and the buzzer, especially against Chapman. So with Altuve, like Springer, we don't exactly know. And I know Altuve is really good, but we aren't 100% sure now because of what has come out. So we have to see them do it with all the eyes being on them and everyone making sure that they're not cheating. Number 16, we have Aaron Judge for the New York Yankees. And in 102 games, he had 27 home runs, hit 55 runs driven in, 272 average, 3-1 base percentage. He was all right against Minnesota. He wasn't great against Houston, but he has had some postseason success, and he plays a really good right field. Judge is, he's a really good player. He has had a lot of injuries. He's had a lot of inconsistencies. He strikes out a lot. So, maybe there are some better players than him, but I can understand him being rated high on the list. Number 15, Freddie Freeman, All-Star of the Braves, 158 games, 38 home runs, 121 RBIs, 295 average, 389 base percentage. He wasn't that good in the playoffs the past couple years, and Freddie Freeman is a really good all-around player, but I don't think he's that much better than some of the other guys on this list. He's very good, but I don't know about better than some of the other players on here. At number 14, Max Scherzer. He was an all-star, 27 games, 292 ERA, 243 strikeouts, 33 walks. He was really good in the playoffs last year. Max Scherzer is always in the running for one of the best pitchers in baseball. Always right there for the Cy Young. He's won multiple Cy Youngs in the past, so we know Max Scherzer is one of the best pitchers in baseball. This is a pretty good rating for him, but he could be rated higher, honestly. At number 13, we have Justin Verlander, All-Star, 34 starts, 258 ERA, 300 strikeouts, 42 walks. He wasn't that good in the postseason, which is a surprise considering how good he usually is in the postseason. The big game that comes to mind was that one against the Yankees where he didn't have his command in the first inning, gave up the home run 6, then all of a sudden he was lights out again. So he wasn't his normal self in the postseason last year. At number 12, we have Ronald Acuna Jr., All-Star from the Atlanta Braves. 156 games, 41 homers, 101 RBIs, 280 average, .365 on base percentage. He had 37 stolen bases. He plays a good center field, and he was good in the LDS against the Cardinals. Now, Acuna obviously could do it all. 40 home runs, almost 40 stolen bases. 280 average, not great. Strikes out a lot, but he has a lot of speed. He could do a lot of different things, and he is still very young. But I don't know if he's better than some of the other players on here. I'm not sure if he's better than Freddie Freeman, only because Freeman's done it for a longer time, or Verlander or Scherzer, because they're some of the best pitchers in baseball. Acuna eventually can be one of the top players in baseball, but again, he is a little too young, so I'm not too crazy about him being rated this high. At number 11, we have Juan Soto, 150 games, 34 home runs, 110 RBIs, 282 average, 401 on base percentage. He had a lot of clutch hits in the playoffs, and maybe that's why he got rated so high on this list, because his numbers in the regular season don't really warrant that. A lot of players had this kind of year. Doesn't steal a lot of bases, doesn't play the best left field, and he obviously draws a lot of walks. He is extremely young. He's definitely mature. He definitely is a much better hitter than he should be for his age. He draws too many walks, honestly, because hitters that young should not have that kind of discipline and vision that he has. So we know he's capable of definitely becoming one of the best players in baseball, but again, not yet. Even though he's clutch, not yet. Number 10, Francisco Lindor, all-star. 143 games, 32 home runs, 74 RBIs, 284 average, 335 on base percentage. Switch hitter with really good speed and is a very good defender. So Lindor, he does it every single year, and he does it all. There is nothing that Francisco Lindor cannot do. So, I mean, it's obvious why he is a top 10 player in baseball, because, again, he does all the time. Eventually, Acuna could be top 10 if he does it all the time, but he hasn't yet. So that's why Lindor is rated above him. At number 9, Nolan Arenado, all-star, 155 games, 41 home runs, 118 RBIs, 315 average, 379 base percentage. Now, Arenado does play in Coors Field, but he is so consistent. He does this every single year. A bunch of RBIs, a bunch of home runs, one of the best defenders in all of baseball, gets on base, hits for over 300. Again, what can't he do either? Arenado, tremendous player. Could be rated better on this list, honestly. Number 8, Jacob deGrom, 32 starts, 2.43 ERA, 255 strikeouts, 44 walks. Honestly, deGrom is the best pitcher in baseball only because I watch him all the times and I've watched him face all the other pitchers. I know he's better than them. The thing about deGrom is that he had such a tremendous year winning the Cy Young with ERA under 2. And the year after that, 2.43 ERA still was really good. I still was good enough for him to win the Cy Young. He gets no run support. He's always under duress. He could field his position. He could hit. deGrom does everything. He is a tremendous player, and he deserves to be in the top 10. At number 7, Gerrit Cole, all-star from the Astros, now Yankees. 33 starts, 2.50 ERA, 326 strikeouts, 48 walks. He became drastically different in Houston, and he was really good against the Yankees, and he was pretty good against the Nationals. That's my problem with Cole. He was drastically different when he got to the Astros. Like, he was pretty good with Pittsburgh. He became phenomenal with Houston, and I don't think that one phenomenal year puts him ahead of deGrom, who does it year after year after year, and did it without Houston, who has so many fishy things going on with them, because Verlander became better, Morton became better, Cole became better. We already know their hitters were cheating. So I'm curious to see what Cole does in Yankee Stadium with a lot of pressure on him in New York, like deGrom does in Yankee Stadium. If Cole could do it again, then he's better because he is younger and he strikes out a lot of batters, even though deGrom had a better ERA, and this was a down year for deGrom. So, and this was an extremely up year for Gerrit Cole. So for now, deGrom is better than Cole. Maybe it could be changed. I doubt it. deGrom is better than Cole. I mean, some people know that, but everyone loves the strikeout, so Cole's rated higher. At number 6, Anthony Rendon, all-star with the Nationals, now with the Angels, 146 games, 34 home runs, 126 RBIs, 319 average, 412 on base percentage. He was tremendous in the playoffs. He's an extremely tough out. He's a good fielder. He puts the ball in play. He's just all-around really good player. I don't know about top 5, though. I honestly think that Lindor is better than him. I think deGrom is better than him. I think Scherzer is better than him. I think Arenado is better than him. I think a good amount of players are better than Anthony Rendon. But I understand why he's raised one of the better players in baseball, because he is, but not top 6. I mean, he's not that high. He should be a little lower than that. Number 5, Alex Bregman, all-star of the Astros, 156 games, 41 home runs, 112 RBIs, 296 average, 423 on base percentage. He was good against Tampa, bad against the Yankees, good against Washington. Bregman, really good player, plays multiple positions. He was healthy while Houston had a lot of injuries, so he had to play those multiple positions. He played them well. Obviously, he can hit really well. He can get on base really well, draws a ton of walks, doesn't strike out that much. He's a tough out. But, again, because of Houston, I have to keep an eye on him. I have to make sure that Bregman actually is this good. He has to prove it to me. He can be one of the better players in baseball. But we have to see now with the pressure and everyone making sure they're not cheating again. Number 4, Mookie Betts, all-star from the Boston Red Sox, now with the Dodgers. 150 games, 29 home runs, 80 RBIs, 295 average, 391 base percentage. Great speed, excellent defense, leader, brings a lot of energy. Mookie Betts is one of the best players in baseball, no doubt about it. He could play multiple positions. He could play them well. So, I mean, Mookie Betts, I think he's a tremendous player. I'm really glad he made top 5 because he deserves it. Even though this was a down year for him, he still did really well. He was the MVP the year before that. Mookie Betts is a tremendous player. We'll see what he does with the Dodgers. Number 3, his Dodger teammate, Cody Bellinger, all-star, 156 games, 47 homers, 115 RBIs, 305 average, 406 on base percentage. He wasn't that good in the NLDS, but he has great versatility. He plays those positions really well. He can play first base and center field and right field and left field, and he plays them all really well. He has a lot of speed for a guy that can hit almost 50 home runs. I mean, Cody Bellinger is a tremendous all-around player. He's one of those guys that he can just do it all, and he does it at such a high level, and he's done it before, and it looks like he's getting better. It's hard to get better than this season he had right here, but he just does so much. He's worthy of being one of the top 5 players in baseball. Number 2, Christian Yelich, all-star from the Milwaukee Brewers, 130 games, 44 home runs, 97 RBIs, 329 average, 429 base percentage. He has a lot of speed. He doesn't have the defense that Bellinger has. He doesn't have the versatility that Bellinger has. Yelich, he is really good. I like Bellinger better. I like Mookie Betts better. So Yelich, he is top 5, but I don't think he's better than Bellinger and Betts. That's me. Yelich is really good, but I don't know if he's quite better than those guys. I just think those guys do a little more than he does, and I just feel like they're just more all-around players than him. Number 1, no surprise, Mike Trout. He obviously was an all-star. 134 games, 45 homers, 104 RBIs, 291 average, 430 on base percentage. Great speed, great defense. He's Mike Trout. He's the golden boy. Everyone knows he's the best player. Wins the MVP every year. One of the better players we might ever see. So that is the list. That was MLB's 100 players. That was my reaction to it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Let me know, what do you think about the list? How would you rate my takes? How would you rate some of these other players? Did I miss out on some guys that were robbed? Or some guys rated too low or too high? Then maybe even I said got a bad rap. Am I too high on Machado and Bryce Harper or Paul Goldschmidt, Clayton Kershaw, some other players? Let me know what you guys think of that. Subscribe to keep up with anything going on the channel. Obviously, there'll be the show videos coming. NFL draft video coming later this week, so make sure to keep in with all that. It was a long video, but I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you did, leave a like. And until the next one, be safe, be smart, and I'll see you in the next one.